you for joining us at UInc. My name is Ria Greif, and I'm here with you today, as I am every week, to help build the most important brand in your life, which is you. And when we talk about building, we use tools, and the same goes for building our brand. These wellness tools will help elevate your emotional intelligence and help to lead you in a more positive, successful direction in life and in business. Some of these tools you will find useful today, and some you will pack into your briefcase for your new job. This week's tool is clarity. And why clarity, although elusive, is achievable and critical for long-term success in business, and how to gain this clarity is what we will do once I show you that this is a great tool for your brand. Clarity is your mind's natural state. When you learn to clear your mind, you begin to think like a winner, like many captains of industry, visionaries, performers, performance athletes, innovators, and inventors who profit from flow states that a clear mind brings. So why do we struggle with having clarity if it is our innate way of thinking? Well, we all have so much going on. A million different projects, to-do lists, financial worries, deadlines, commitments, domestic duties, childcare, multiple jobs, dual careers, and so on. Additionally, our mental clarity is also under attack from hyperlinks and smartphones and social media and video games and streaming services that are all consuming our precious attention, and information overload is accelerating and getting more pervasive with no signs of slowing down. With all this buzzing around in our heads, it is often a nightmare trying to concentrate on one thing, and our minds become over-revved, weary, and congested. This mental congestion results in time poverty, strained relationships, poor performance, unrealized potential, and unsuccessful goal setting. What if someone could show you how to empty your mind of all the noise? If you could be shown how to declutter your mind and concentrate on one important thing. Author Jamie Smart does just that in her book, Clarity, Clear Mind, Better Performance, Bigger Results, by challenging the misunderstandings we have about how life works. Rather than thinking, once I get the job, once I get the girl, the ideal weight, the house, the car, the kids, the workout regimen, write the book, learn the language, etc., I'll be happy, we need to free ourselves from this trap of flawed logic. Instead, our core states, such as security, confidence, peace, love, happiness, and success, come from gaining inner clarity, not exterior things. And through her use of mind experiments, learning to find your inner voice and trust this intuition, and recognizing that feelings aren't the result of circumstances, but the result of our perceptions and judgments, and that the world outside of us is being generated from inside of us. Today, we have with us on our show career expert who helps employees find their clarity. Shelley Stotzer is the owner and managing director at Crossworks, career and talent strategist, and maintains an impressive track record for helping individuals and organizations gain clarity and focus to perform their best work. Ms. Stotzer is recognized for visionary leadership and game-changing business solutions in providing the clarity that businesses need to grow market presence while establishing a culture that respects the contribution of each individual using the Berkman method. She is an advisor for Rev1 Ventures, an organization dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build great companies. And Ms. Stotzer also has served on the board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the board of the Worthington Resource Pantry, and founded the Girls on the Run program at her daughter's school. When Ms. Stotzer isn't cultivating lucidity, she can be found having more fun than most of us with her 2 daughters and loving husband, traveling and having a ball. Welcome, Ms. Stotzer.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to say, and I didn't include this in your bio, is that you basically saved Highlights magazine. And I'm telling you, like I read about, you introduced apps and the clubs and the games and the puzzles and strategic partnerships. My kids love that. So for me and from my family, I just want to say thank you so much for doing that. Maybe one of these days I can get your autograph.
Thank you. It was a great experience. It was a super fun team to work with.
Were you also inspired by the fact that your daughters were young at that age and you guys were consuming that publication?
Absolutely. It was one of the advantages of working there at the time. I was able to consume not just the publication, the materials we created, but also all of the insight we gained from research and doing the State of the Kids and other events where we learned more about what was going on with children in the market, but not in the marketplace because we didn't actually sell to them, but in the world, I should say.
So how did you go about gaining that clarity as to what kids today wanted? Because obviously it needed an update. How did you go about that process?
So our editorial team was fantastic at reading not just modern information, but putting it in the context of a broader scope of information, because not everything is, like for example, the apps. Technology was really hot. We were very careful and slow and deliberate about how we introduced those products to make sure that they were good for kids at the time, not just following a fast trend. So we did a lot of research, talking to all kinds of experts to understand what we should be doing for children.
And so I like that approach, because I think a lot of times people in their angst or in their desire to get there quickly don't take the time to really think about what they're doing and to stay faithful to what their brand is. And they may have some, short-term success, but they just don't, there's no longevity to that.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Another thing you might recognize from Highlights for Children is they don't take outside advertising.
That's right.
And that was something that, comes up regularly, because that is a very fast way to increase revenue. But we deliberately said we're not going to do that because it does not reflect the brand that we want to have in the marketplace.
I didn't even think of that, and that's great, because the last thing you want is to sell your child's mind to, advertisers, marketers, and everyone has a job to do. It's not like we hate that whole machine, but certainly we want to guard our children against it.
That's right. So it was very deliberate, thoughtful, and we needed to be clear on what our brand represented in order to stay true to those values.
Did you help craft a mission statement, or did they already have one in place that you kind of updated?
Their mission statement has been held true for a number of years. It was more figuring out how the marketing and how the extension of that brand fit into that mission.
Gotcha. Okay. And thanks again. We really do. I think it's fun. I mean, they actually fight with each other over who's going to do these various activities all the time, and they're like yelling. I was like, maybe I should just get 2 subscriptions and get it over with.
I love hearing that.
Good. I'm glad. Okay, so earlier in the program, we mentioned how those who are visionaries are those who have clarity. And in almost any description I found of you from other business leaders and those that you worked with in the past described you as such. How did you develop this clarity in all these various roles that you took over the years? Does this happen from your personal experience with the Birkman method as a client of CrossWorks, how that whole story started, which is a great story too, which is why you went back and acquired the company?
Yes, so I've always had an inner compass. I can't tell you how it was developed, but I can say I'm pretty independent, and independence is one of my top 5 values. So I always found that I could consume a lot of information and just know which direction to go. So it wasn't until I hired CrossWorks that I wrote it down on paper. But it really, when I went through the career assessment program and I put together a career map for myself, and I looked at my top 5 values, I looked at my top 10 skills, I looked at what I needed out of a work environment, out of a boss, and I pulled all that together, it made sense looking backwards, but it was the first time it was ever on paper. So following that, I made some career moves and then came back and bought the company.
So you already had that, but then to see it kind of put out there, and then did you utilize that even further to even further your ability to have that clarity in those various roles?
Absolutely. I have a dashboard that I used when I went on to work at IGS and when I chose to come back and buy the company. I follow that dashboard and make sure that whatever choice I'm making is directionally more in line with what I see as my future than less in line. It's not always perfect, right?
Right.
Like, you kind of have to make movements in the right direction. And as long as you know what that direction is, you can make those choices to move in the right direction. So
a good analogy for that is like an airplane pilot takes off from one place and they're going to land somewhere, but in the air they have to make course corrections in order to get there.
That's right.
You still know where you're going. You still know I'm going to Bangkok, but I just got to make some adjustments depending on the wind and whatever else is going on.
And that's where the clarity comes in play, because if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere. You better as well plan it.
Right. And so how many years after you took that assessment, and that's the Birkman method, how many years after that did you go back to acquire the company, which is an amazing story?
About 4.5 years, 5 years.
And did you always have that on your mind that you were going to come back to do that?
No, I didn't. I have to admit I did not. I knew how much value I got from the process, and I knew how it played out in my jobs thereafter. But it wasn't until Celia Crossley and I, who was the founder of CrossWorks, reconnected and started talking about what my next move was going to be. And when we talked about it, at first I actually didn't think it was going to be the right thing for me because it was a small organization and I was used to these large,
Yeah.
very public organizations. And actually, I went back to my career dashboard again
Wow.
and said, why am I not looking at this more carefully? And I looked and said, what do I like to do? And what are my values? And how does this align? And it actually led me to making the choice to purchase CrossWorks.
And was she thinking of you in terms of succession planning?
Not originally.
Okay.
She thought her daughter was going to step in.
Oh, wow.
And she made a different career choice for herself. She was a career coach and she followed her own path as well.
Interesting. What a great story.
She's a yoga instructor now.
Oh, really? That's a great job. Okay, so one of the other things that we discussed earlier is how important it is for leaders to have clarity and to engage in behaviors like asking the right questions and listening, visiting the production people, assessing the clarity of their vision, and so forth. So you're currently in the class of 2019 for Leadership Ohio, is that correct? Are you still in it?
Yes.
And it's a nonprofit, for those who are listening who don't know, that is creating connections in order to unify leaders who make Ohio a great state to live and work. Based on your experience as a student in this program and your expertise in this area with CrossWorks, does that lend to the leaders' clarity to be connected with other leaders?
Absolutely. I think in order to be a good leader, you have to first understand yourself. And once you understand yourself, you understand what you like to do, what you don't like to do, what you're drawn to, and then you can appreciate other leaders and other leaders' perspectives. But I do believe it starts with yourself. And then surrounding yourself with leaders who might think differently or bring a different perspective or have a different number of years in an industry or whatever it is. I believe it makes you a stronger leader once you have that clarity about yourself and you know what it is you're seeking to make you more well-rounded in your thought process.
And so that's something that you were nominated for, or because I think that's what the process is.
Yes, I was nominated for that. And it's just starting in April, so it is it will be a new experience for me.
Nice, nice. Well, I'd love to hear you report back with that.